you've heard of Rodney Dangerfield, of course.
Absolutely.
He passed recently. Well, he had a film. My mother loved going to the movies, and I would keep my eye out and read the movie reviews in the Hartford Current every week, and they'd give it like 0 stars to 5 stars. Well, this movie came out with Rodney Dangerfield. I don't know if it had 4 or 5 stars, but the one thing that caught my eye, I would never think of taking my mother to a Rodney Dangerfield event
But you
because of,
did.
the profane. Well, the thing is, the movie, it said in the movie, he was extremely funny, and it proved that you don't have to use profanity to be funny. So when I read the review, and it said it was uncharacteristic of Rodney Dangerfield not to use any profanity in the movie, and he never even used one little curse word in the movie, and it was so funny. The movie was a fun story about him going back to college to be with his son. I took my mom to see that movie. She loved it. And she said she wouldn't mind seeing him. And I said, this was back around 1982, I believe. And I said, I don't know if you want to go to one of his shows, but the movie was great. And if they ever did a sequel, I would take her. But wouldn't you know it, about 3 months later, it was all around the news. Rodney Dangerfield was coming to the Bushnell in Hartford to do a show. My mom heard about it. My mom says, oh, I want to go see him. I said, Mom, it's not going to be like the movie. But she really wanted to see him, so I went to a ticket broker that I knew, and I got front seats at the Bushnell. It was
Get out.
front and center. I think it was the 3rd row, right on the aisle, about 3 rows from the front row, right on the aisle, but right in the middle. So he comes out. He has a white towel over his shoulder, and the crowd's roaring, laughing. And he's got his eyes bulging. He was quite a character. And we're sitting, directly in front. He goes right to the middle with the microphone. And then he starts talking, and about 30 seconds out of he started using profanity, the F word, this and that. My mother looks at me and says, you took me to this? Crowd's
But
like
you
laughing.
warned her.
I warned her. I said, Mom, I warned you. I said, this isn't like his movie. I said, his movie was great, but I said, this is his show. I'm not staying for this. She got up. We had been there maybe a minute or a minute and a half. It was a sellout crowd. You couldn't get tickets if you waited too long. We get up, get into the aisle, and he stops talking. He's staring at us, and the crowd, the spotlights of the Bushnell are on us as we're walking up the aisle. She's like running up the aisle, and I'm just walking steadily. The crowd is roaring with laughter because they thought we were planted there, because you get up at the beginning of his show, the spotlights are on us, and everybody thought, oh, we were plants, no respect for Rodney. We were definitely put there. But my mother and I think Rodney Dangerfield knew we weren't plants, but we went out in the lobby, and you could hear him screaming, hey, where are you two going? Blankety blank. I get no respect. And the crowd is roaring with laughter. It was like we were part of the show, but we really weren't. My mother had no tolerance for that.
And she didn't stay after all of that. She still left.
Well, yeah, we left. We were outside. They had the, audio system on, and we left the Bushnell. We were there for less than 2 minutes, and the crowd was roaring with laughter. And then someone who was at the show that knew I was going to be there, I saw them at work a few days later, and they said, Joe, why did you and your mother leave? I said, well, she wasn't going to listen to the profanity, and I warned her about it. He says, everybody there thought you were part of the show. You were planted there, as part of the entertainment to make everybody laugh,
That's great, Joe.
It was a genuine reaction. And then the more serious story, just to illustrate what a good person my mother was, she wanted to get her college degree, and she started at the community college. She's 58, and she got her degree, I think she was 61. She got straight A's, and she took 2 accounting. She was a brilliant lady. She took 2 accounting courses, and she took 2 Chinese courses. Professor Gidman from Yale came up to Manchester Community College as an experimental trial to teach Chinese. There was only 5 people in her class. She got straight A's. She was an intern with the town for 6 months, public administration. She got her degree in public administration. But anyway, she got straight A's, but the only reason why she wasn't valedictorian, the very first course she took was Women in America, and this was 1977. Now, Roe versus Wade had just been decided in 1973 on abortion. So it was still a fresh topic. You know, it was only 4 years in the making. And her first class, she told me about it. Her first class, she's in this classroom. The professor or lecturer was in her late 20s, and there was about 30, 35 young women in the room. And my mom, of course, stood out because she was 58 years old. And the professor early on, the first class, said, okay, Roe versus Wade, that's a big issue in America. How many here are, for abortion? They're in agreement with the decision. Stand on this side of the classroom. So everybody got up except my mother. She was all by herself. She's against abortion, so she stood on the other side of the classroom.
Okay.
The professor started grilling my mother like there was something wrong with her, And the whole thing is, when you go to college, there's a lot of tests you can take. There's right or wrong tests, A, B, C, D, or, you write in the blank.
Sure.
But then a great deal of the grade can be essay, and it's like at the discretion of the professor or the teacher. If you get an A, B, or C, they can, give you what they want off an essay. So my mother was the only one. It turned out it was one of those classes you take in college. If you want to get an easy A, this would be it. But my mother, the teacher, gave her a B because she was against abortion right out of the gate. Everybody else in the class, she got an A, and it kept my mother from being valedictorian. It was the only B on her transcript. She had all A's. And I asked her later in life, I said, Mom, if you knew that was going to keep you from being valedictorian in class in 1980, would you have just gotten up with the other, women and just pretended? She said, absolutely not. She said,
so her morals came first.
Yeah, she always said to us as children, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and suffers the loss of his soul? She said, I wasn't going to, give false pretense and, suffer the loss of my soul just to be valedictorian. And I told that story at her funeral, her eulogy. And it was really moving. I told both those stories, the Rodney Dangerfield one.
Well,
and
look,
that one.
Joe, we're up against a break, but I want to say to you before I let you go that it sounds like she was a mother of character and integrity and didn't compromise. She didn't like swearing, she left. She didn't agree with abortion, she stood alone. Didn't matter. Thank you for sharing those.
You too, and happy Mother's Day, and I hope your mother calls in. God bless her. Thank you.